The man with the baby blue folder. Monday morning started like any other for Ethan Clark, a single dad of one. The sky was gray, the wind sharp, and the streets were already buzzing. He walked briskly through downtown Los Angeles, dressed in his best clothes, an ironed shirt with a small tear near the sleeve, brown shoes he had polished 3 times that morning, and a navy blue folder tucked under his arm. Inside the folder were his dreams, a detailed business plan for a small auto repair shop he wanted to open. He had saved every dollar he could working night shifts as a janitor and part-time weekends as a delivery driver. He had written the business plan himself, watched dozens of videos, and even paid a college student to help make it look more professional. Today he had a meeting at Weststone Bank, a meeting that could change his life. He arrived 15 minutes early. The receptionist, a young woman with headphones around her neck, gave him a quick glance. "Loan appointments?" she asked without looking up. "Yes," Ethan replied, smiling nervously. "Ethan Clark, 10 a.m. "You're early," she said, as if that were a crime. "Take a seat." He sat down, adjusting his collar and holding the folder tighter. His hands were sweaty. His heart raced. A few minutes later, the glass doors swung open behind him, and someone walked in. Calm, quiet, unnoticed by most. The man wore a gray hoodie, faded jeans, and dark sunglasses. No one paid much attention to him, not even the receptionist. But Ethan noticed, because the man sat just 2 seats away from him, and he looked familiar. Very familiar. It was Keanu Reeves. But Ethan didn't say anything. He assumed it couldn't really be him, and if it was, he probably wanted privacy. So Ethan just sat there, his blue folder pressed against his chest. Finally, a sharply dressed man stepped out of the side hallway and called, "Mr. Clark?" Ethan stood immediately. "Yes, sir." "Follow me." He walked into a sleek office with glass walls and expensive furniture. The loan officer's nameplate read, "Richard Devlin, Senior Accounts Manager." "Take a seat," Richard said. "Let's get started." Ethan opened his folder carefully and placed the business plan on the desk. "I've prepared everything," he said, trying to hide the shake in his voice. "I've got budgeting, market analysis, pricing breakdowns, even projected growth numbers." Richard flipped through the papers, not really reading them. Then he looked at Ethan. "You work as a janitor and part-time driver, right?" "Yes, but I've been saving for 2 years. I have $22,000 in personal savings, and my uncle has agreed to invest another 10. I just need a loan to cover the rest for equipment and leasing the shop." Richard smiled tightly. "You have a child, correct?" "My daughter, Ella. She's 6. Richard sighed and leaned back in his chair. "Ethan, I appreciate your enthusiasm," he said. "But this bank doesn't typically approve loans for low-income single parents without collateral." Ethan blinked. "But I have savings, and a co-investor, and the business plan." "Ethan," Richard interrupted, "it's not personal. It's numbers. And the numbers say this is high risk." Ethan's shoulders slumped. "Maybe try a credit union," Richard offered. "Or friends and family." Ethan stood slowly. "My family is all I've got, and they gave everything they could." Richard didn't respond. Ethan left the office without a word, blue folder clutched in both hands. But as he reached the lobby, a voice spoke behind him. "Excuse me?" the man in the hoodie said, standing now. "You dropped something." Ethan turned. It was Keanu Reeves, holding a single paper from Ethan's folder. His cover page. "Thank you," Ethan said, reaching for it. Keanu didn't hand it over immediately. "Auto repair shop?" he asked. "You write this?" "Yeah," Ethan replied quietly. "I was trying to get a loan, but it didn't work out." Keanu looked him straight in the eyes. "Mind if I read it?" Sure." Keanu sat back down, flipped through the plan for a solid 10 minutes while Ethan stood nearby, stunned and unsure what to do. Then Keanu looked up. "This is good," he said. "Really good." Ethan smiled weakly. "Thank you. It's not perfect, but no, I mean it's smart." Keanu interrupted. "You calculated seasonal revenue, you have a community discount strategy, You even budgeted for marketing. Did you go to business school? No. I just studied online. Keanu stood, folded the paper, and handed it back. You ever consider pitching this to someone besides a bank? Like who? Keanu took off his sunglasses, and in that moment Ethan realized, without a doubt, it was him. The Keanu Reeves. Ethan couldn't breathe for a second. You've got a meeting with someone better, Keanu said, smiling. Wait, what? I like this. I think it has potential. Meet me tomorrow at this address. He handed Ethan a card. Ethan looked at it. It had no title. Just an address and a phone number. I don't understand, Ethan said. Keanu gave him a warm, steady look, you will. He walked out of the bank and disappeared into the street. Ethan stood frozen, clutching the card in his blue folder, unsure if he was dreaming or if the most surreal moment of his life had just happened. He rushed home. Ella was sitting on the living room floor, drawing with crayons. How'd it go? She asked. Ethan didn't know how to explain, so he just smiled and said, we might have a new friend. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He Googled the address Keanu had given him. It was a private building in Beverly Hills. No company name, just a high-rise with tight security. He called the number. A woman answered. Mr. Clark? Yes? We'll see you at 10 a.m. sharp. Parking is reserved in your name. Bring your proposal. Ethan stared at the phone. What was going on? The next morning, he dressed the same as before. Same shirt, same folder. But this time, something felt different. He arrived at the building, and the receptionist already knew his name. He was taken to the top floor where a large office overlooked the city, and there, sitting on a couch with 2 mugs of coffee, was Keanu Reeves. Have a seat, Keanu said. You're going to tell me your whole story, and we're going to make something real. Ethan sat, eyes wide, and as he began to speak, the world outside the glass windows moved on. But inside that room, something life-changing had just begun. When truth meets trust, the office was quiet. Ethan sat across from Keanu Reeves, still unsure if he was dreaming. He could see the city skyline through the tall glass windows. Everything felt surreal. The soft couch, the faint smell of fresh coffee, and the fact that one of the most famous people on earth had invited him here to talk about his dream. Keanu leaned forward and smiled gently. Just talk to me, Ethan. Not like a pitch. Just tell me why this means so much to you. Ethan took a breath and began. My daughter Ella, she's the reason. After my wife passed, everything changed. I used to be a mechanic at a small garage. Nothing big, but it paid the bills. Then the garage shut down, and suddenly I was out of work, with a 4-year-old girl and no savings. His hands tightened around the blue folder. I cleaned buildings at night, delivered groceries during the day, and did any small job I could find. I saved every spare dollar, every single one. But I didn't just want to survive, I wanted to build something she could be proud of. He opened the folder again, this time showing Keanu photos of the building he hoped to rent. It was an old, dusty repair shop near a busy intersection. The rent was low, the tools would be secondhand, but the plan was solid. I want to fix cars again, Ethan continued. Not just for income. I want to run a shop that treats people fairly. No scams, no overcharging. Free oil changes for single parents once a month. Honest service. Keanu nodded, still listening. I didn't want to ask for a handout, Ethan added. I went to the bank because I thought they might see how serious I am, but they just saw what I'm not. Not rich, not educated, not connected. Silence filled the room for a few seconds. Then Keanu spoke. You know what I see, Ethan? Ethan looked up. I see someone who already did the hard part, Keanu said. You fought to stay standing when the world tried to knock you down. You stayed kind, you stayed focused, and you didn't give up. Ethan blinked fast, trying to keep his emotions down. Keanu leaned back and continued. I've met people who start businesses with millions in backing and still fail, because they didn't have heart. But you're building something from the ground with your own hands. That matters. Ethan swallowed hard. So, what does that mean? Keanu stood and walked to a shelf behind him. He pulled down a black folder and returned to the couch. "It means I want to invest," he said. "Not just donate. Invest." "Invest?" Ethan repeated, stunned. "Yes," Keanu said. "I want you to keep ownership. It's your shop. I'll fund the first phase. Leasing, equipment, startup costs. You'll run it. And if it becomes successful, we split profits. You decide the values. I just want it to be real." Ethan stared at him. "Why me?" Keanu smiled softly. "Because many good people never get a chance. And maybe it's time someone changed that." Ethan couldn't speak. He stood up, shook Keanu's hand with both of his and whispered, "Thank you, I won't waste this." Keanu squeezed his hand. "I know." A week later, the lease was signed. The dusty garage Ethan had dreamed about, for over a year now, had a new sign out front. Clark's Honest Auto, no flashing lights. No fancy branding, just a clean painted name, and a single wooden bench out front for waiting customers. Keanu stopped by that afternoon. He wore the same hoodie as before. No entourage, no cameras. Ethan gave him a tour. He showed him the freshly scrubbed floor, the second-hand lift they'd just installed, and the old vending machine in the corner that still worked if you hit it the right way. "You did all this in 5 days?" Keanu asked. "I haven't slept much." Ethan laughed. "But yeah," Keanu looked around. "You're building something that's going to matter," he said. Word spread faster than anyone expected. First, a local woman posted about the shop on social media. Single dad denied by the bank, now backed by Keanu Reeves. It went viral in less than 12 hours. News outlets picked it up. Reporters came. But Keanu refused interviews. Instead, he asked them to focus on Ethan. "This isn't about me," he said. "It's about someone who deserved a chance." When a journalist asked Ethan what he planned to do next, he said, "Serve people honestly, and maybe give someone else a chance one day." He didn't smile for the cameras. He just held up a wrench and went back to work. Within a month, Clark's Honest Auto had its first full waiting list. Ethan hired 2 mechanics. One was a retired veteran who had trouble finding work. The other was a young woman who had left school to support her siblings. He paid them fairly, gave them flexible hours, and kept his promise. Free oil changes for single parents, no questions asked. Keanu visited now and then. Sometimes he brought lunch. Sometimes he just sat on the bench and watched customers come and go. One day a woman with a stroller came in crying. Her tire had burst and she couldn't afford a new one. Ethan fixed it himself, didn't charge her. As she drove away, Keanu said, "You're running more than a business. You're running a mission." But not everyone was happy. Richard Devlin, the loan officer from West Stone Bank, saw the news. And he wasn't impressed. He told a reporter, "This is a media stunt. Celebrities get bored. Let's see where that shop is in 6 months." His words went viral too, but for the wrong reasons. People flooded West Stone's social media with comments. "You judged a man without even reading his plan. This is what gatekeeping looks like." Keanu believed in him. Why couldn't you? The bank tried to clean up the damage, but the story had already changed. It wasn't just about Ethan anymore. It was about people like him. People overlooked, denied, dismissed. And how one moment, one hand on the shoulder, one voice that said, "I believe you," could change everything. Later that month, Keanu and Ethan sat at a small diner sharing coffee after a long day. "You're quiet," Keanu said. "Just thinking," Ethan replied. "About what?" "About how fast life can shift," Ethan said. "Last month I was getting turned away. Now I'm employing people." Keanu nodded. "It's not about speed. It's about direction." Ethan smiled. "And what direction are we headed?" Keanu looked at him with steady eyes, towards something good. And as the night rolled on, neither of them knew what was coming next, because just beyond the corner, someone from Ethan's past was watching, someone who had once hurt him deeply, and was now about to walk back into his life, not to congratulate him, but to challenge everything he had built. A face from the past walks in. The sun had just begun to rise when Ethan arrived at the shop. The air was still, the city barely awake. He liked this part of the day before the rush, before the noise. He used the quiet to think, to prepare. He turned on the lights, opened the garage doors, and began checking the tools. Within the hour, customers started showing up. First, an elderly man with a rattling exhaust, then a young couple with brake issues. And as usual, Ethan made time for each of them, never rushing, never upselling, always honest. But just before noon, a car pulled into the lot slowly, a black luxury sedan. New. Spotless. Ethan didn't recognize the car, but as soon as the door opened, his stomach dropped. Out stepped Bradley Kane. Ethan hadn't seen him in over 6 years. Bradley used to be Ethan's best friend. They grew up, together, worked their first jobs together, and even rented an apartment when they were 20. But that was before Bradley stole something from Ethan. His trust, his money, and nearly his future. Back then they had dreamed of opening a garage together. They saved up for months. But when Ethan's mother passed and he went out of town for the funeral, Bradley emptied their joint account and vanished. Ethan had spent years rebuilding from scratch. And now, Bradley stood in front of him, wearing a tailored suit, holding designer sunglasses and smiling like nothing had happened. "Ethan Clark," Bradley said. "Heard you opened a shop. Mind if I come in?" Ethan's jaw clenched. "Why are you here? Can't I drop by and say hello to an old friend? You lost that title a long time ago." Bradley raised his hands, pretending to surrender. "Fair enough. But still, I saw the news. You and Keanu Reeves? That's wild. Proud of you, man. Really." Ethan didn't reply. Bradley continued walking inside. "You always had the skills, you know, even back in the day." "Me? I went corporate. Startup investor now. But I still miss the grease and engines." "So what do you want?" Ethan asked. Bradley grinned. "A piece of the action." Ethan blinked. "Excuse me? Look, your story's hot right now. Viral. Public love you. And when that happens, money follows. I'm just saying, I could help you expand. More shops, better tools, maybe even a mobile service line." Ethan folded his arms. "Why would I trust you after what you did?" "Because I know business," Bradley said smoothly. "And because I know you. You've got heart, but no idea how fast things can get out of hand once you're in the spotlight. One bad review, one late delivery, one lawsuit. It could all crumble. Are you threatening me?" "No," Bradley said, still smiling. "Just offering insurance." Ethan stayed quiet. "Think about it," Bradley said, turning to leave. "You've got my number." As he walked out, he passed Keanu Reeves, who had just pulled into the lot. Bradley stopped briefly and said, "Big fan, man. Love your work." Keanu nodded once but didn't reply. When he walked in, he found Ethan standing still, staring at the same spot on the floor. "You okay?" Keanu asked. "That was Bradley," Ethan said quietly. "Bradley? Someone who used to be my best friend, until he disappeared with everything I had." Keanu looked toward the door, then back at Ethan. "You want me to look into him?" "No," Ethan said. "I don't want to look back, I need to focus." Keanu nodded. "Then let's build something that doesn't need his kind of help." But Bradley didn't walk away quietly. Over the next few days, strange things started happening. An online review appeared, accusing Clark's Honest Auto of overcharging and poor workmanship. But the name on the review wasn't familiar. Then, a city inspector showed up, claiming someone had filed a complaint about improper disposal of vehicle fluids. Ethan showed him the permits. Everything was clean. Still, the inspection delayed business for half a day. Next came a fake invoice sent to a supplier, marked with Ethan's name. The supplier called Ethan, confused. Ethan told them to ignore it, but he knew who had sent it. And then, the worst one morning, as Ethan opened the shop, he found the front window shattered, a brick on the floor, and a note attached that read, "You had your chance. Now watch it all fall." Ethan called the police. They took a report but said, without cameras, there wasn't much they could do. Keanu arrived 20 minutes later, his face unreadable. You sure you don't want me to take care of this another way? He asked. Ethan looked at the broken glass, then at the photos of Ella taped to the shop wall. I want to handle this the way I promised myself I would, with honesty. Keanu nodded slowly. Then we do it right. By the end of the week, something shifted. Ethan decided not to wait for the attacks to stop. He hosted a community open house. Free tire checks, free coffee, free car care tips, and one special event, a workshop for kids to learn how engines work. Dozens showed up, families, teachers, even a local news crew. Keanu showed up too, quietly helping kids screw bolts into toy engines and handing out juice boxes. Ethan stood in the center of it all and felt something strong, a sense of community, of trust, of protection. And that night, after everyone left, he found an envelope on the front bench. No name. Just the words, "For your shop." Inside was $5,000 in cash, and a note that read, "You helped my dad when he couldn't afford repairs. He never forgot it. Thank you." Ethan sat on the bench, tears filling his eyes. He looked up at the stars and whispered, "This is what I'm doing it for." But Bradley wasn't finished. He filed a formal lawsuit claiming that Ethan had stolen their original garage idea from years ago and used it for profit. The legal papers were served at the shop, in front of a customer. Ethan stood frozen. The words blurred on the page. He had no idea what to do, but Keanu did. He took the papers, read them carefully, and said one thing: "We fight back. And this time, we do it in court." Into the courtroom, into the fire. The room was silent when Ethan walked into the courthouse. It smelled like wood polish and old paper, and the tension in the air was heavy. He had never stepped foot inside a courtroom before. Not like this. He wasn't a criminal. He was just a father trying to build something for his daughter. But now he was being sued by his former best friend. Bradley Kane sat at the other table, smug and relaxed, dressed in a flawless navy suit. Beside him sat a high-powered attorney, with slicked back hair and a laptop that never stopped blinking. They looked calm. Practiced. Dangerous. Ethan sat down at his table, heart pounding, but next to him was Keanu Reeves. Calm, steady, confident. Keanu wasn't just there for support. He was representing Ethan. Few people knew this about Keanu, but he had quietly studied law in his early 40s, passing the California bar just out of personal interest. He never used it, until now. When the judge entered, everyone stood. And when the judge called the case, the courtroom doors closed behind them with a deep, final thud. Bradley's lawyer went first. "Your Honor," he said. Standing tall, my client had a business plan, a concept, a vision, and Mr. Clark stole that vision. He used it to create a garage, gained fame through manipulation, and is now profiting off a dream that wasn't his alone. He handed over documents, an old email thread between Ethan and Bradley from years ago, notes scribbled on napkins, and a printed mock-up of a fictional garage name they once brainstormed. The lawyer finished with a sharp look. "We are seeking compensation and a public acknowledgement that Mr. Clark's business is based on stolen intellectual property." The judge turned to Keanu. "Mr. Reeves, your response?" Keanu stood slowly, buttoning his jacket. "Your Honor, the plaintiff has presented memories, not contracts. Ideas, not action. My client did not steal a business. He built one, alone, with his own hands. And unlike the plaintiff, he did not vanish with stolen savings, nor did he threaten or sabotage anyone in the process." He walked to the center of the courtroom. "This isn't a case about theft, it's a case about jealousy." Bradley stiffened in his seat. Keanu continued, "Ethan Clark's shop is not just a garage. It's a living, breathing promise to a daughter. A community space born from honesty and hardship. And no one, no matter how sharply dressed, gets to claim ownership over someone else's grit." The judge listened intently. Then Keanu reached into a folder and handed over a copy of the original bank loan denial letter, the first rental agreement for the shop, and a timeline of every step Ethan had taken since that moment. Every receipt, Every saved penny. Every small loan repaid. This, Keanu said, is proof of action, not daydreams. Over the next 2 days, witnesses were called. Rachel, the janitor who had first helped Ethan clean the shop floor, testified. He scrubbed that place with his own hands, she said. I saw him on his knees removing oil stains with a toothbrush. Customers spoke too. A single mother, a high school teacher, a veteran. He fixed my car and refused to take money when I told him I'd lost my job. He gave my son a tool set after teaching him how to change a tire. He's more than a mechanic. He's hope. Bradley's lawyer tried to discredit them, but the truth hung in the room like a quiet, unstoppable wind. On the 3rd day, Bradley himself was called to the stand. Keanu stood before him. Mr. Kane, he began, can you confirm that you and Mr. Clark once had a joint savings account? Yes. Can you confirm that you emptied that account while Mr. Clark was away for his mother's funeral? Bradley shifted uncomfortably. We had disagreements. The timing, please answer yes or no. Yes, the courtroom murmured. Did you invest any money into Clark's Honest Auto? No. Did you help him clean the building, sign the lease, pay for equipment? No. Did you appear at the grand opening? No. Keanu paused. Then tell me, Mr. Kane, what exactly did you build? Silence. Bradley's lawyer objected, but the judge overruled. You may answer, the judge said. Bradley stayed silent, and that silence said everything. Outside the courthouse, news vans waited. Reporters had followed the case since day one, not because it was flashy, but because it was real. People cared. They saw themselves in Ethan. A week later, the judge released the final ruling. Bradley's claim was denied. The court found no evidence that Ethan had stolen anything. In fact, the judge wrote, Ethan Clark's actions represent the very heart of what entrepreneurship and community building mean in today's world. Bradley was ordered to pay court costs. And when the cameras approached Ethan as he stepped outside, he didn't give a speech. He just said, I'm going back to work. Keanu put a hand on his shoulder and nodded. You did it, he said. We did it, Ethan replied. Back at the shop, the community welcomed Ethan home. Neighbors brought food. Kids drew pictures of him fixing cars. A local artist painted a mural of Clark's Honest Auto with the words, Where hope gets its hands dirty. And late that night, after everyone left, Ethan sat on the garage steps, legs tired, heart full. Ella crawled into his lap, holding a small plastic trophy her school gave her for kindness. Daddy, she said, you won. He kissed the top of her head. We all won, he whispered. But even then, Ethan didn't know. A national organization had taken notice, and someone important was already calling Keanu Reeves about a new plan. Something bigger. Something that could help single parents across the country. And it would all begin with Ethan. From local hero to national hope. Then Clark thought the storm had passed. He had stood his ground in court. He had protected his shop, his name, and most importantly, his dignity. He believed life would go back to normal now, fixing cars, raising Ella, living with quiet purpose. But fate had something else in mind. It started with a phone call. Keanu Reeves was the one who answered it. He was standing on the roof of the garage helping Ethan install a solar light fixture when his phone buzzed. He stepped away for a moment, listened quietly, and then came back with a look Ethan hadn't seen before. We need to talk, Keanu said. They sat on the workbench inside, grease on their clothes, sweat on their foreheads. Ethan, Keanu began slowly, do you know the United Foundation for Single Parents? Ethan shook his head. They're one of the biggest nonprofits in the country, Keanu explained. They focus on helping single moms and dads build better lives, housing, scholarships, even small business grants. They saw your story, and they want to meet you. Ethan blinked. Me? Why? Because they want to launch something new, Keanu said. A national program to fund small businesses owned by single parents, and they want your shop to be the pilot. Ethan's heart stopped for a moment. Wait, like, they want to copy my garage? No, Keanu smiled. They want to build more like it. With your name, your values, your vision. Not a franchise, more like a legacy. Ethan sat there, unable to move. Then finally, he said softly, I don't know anything about running multiple shops. Keanu nodded. I'll help. We'll bring in the right people. But the heart of it has to come from you. A week later, Ethan found himself in Washington, D.C. He had never flown before. He wore a borrowed suit from Keanu's assistant. Ella came with him, holding a stuffed rabbit in one hand and her father's arm in the other. They entered a tall, glass building filled with people in suits and polished shoes. Cameras followed them as they walked into a large hall where a banner read, Launch of the Clark Initiative for Honest Work, then stepped onto the stage, hands trembling. Beside him stood the director of the United Foundation, Keanu, and 3 other single parents, each of them ready to open their own auto shops, repair centers, and cleaning businesses through the new program. Ethan spoke into the microphone. I used to think that no one saw people like me, he said. We work hard. We raise our kids. And sometimes we fall through the cracks, but this is a way to catch those people. To lift them. The room gave a standing ovation. The next morning, major newspapers ran the headline, Single dad who was denied a bank loan will now lead a national program to help others. But it wasn't just media attention. Real change followed. Within 3 months, 2 new shops opened in Arizona and Ohio. Both were run by single parents trained under Ethan's model. Fair prices, community outreach, and monthly services for families in need. Ethan trained them himself. He flew out, met their kids, helped lay down the first floor tiles and install the first lifts. He kept working on cars, too. He never let the fame take away the grease under his nails. But as the movement grew, so did the pressure. Ethan began receiving hundreds of emails a day, requests for funding, desperate stories, questions he didn't know how to answer. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't eat properly. And one day, after a long phone call with a frustrated board member, he collapsed at his desk from exhaustion. Keanu was the first to arrive at the hospital. You're pushing too hard, he said quietly. I just don't want to let anyone down, Ethan whispered, hooked to an IV. Keanu sat beside him, holding his hand like a brother. You already lifted more people than most of us ever will, he said. But you have to pace yourself. This isn't a race, it's a relay. Let others carry the torch too. Ethan nodded, eyes closing. After recovering, Ethan made changes. He hired a small team of single parents to help run the program. He created a simple motto that hung above every door in every shop they opened. Kind hands, honest hearts. He kept working at his garage a few days a week, fixing brakes and transmissions just like before. Ella helped out now. She was older, bolder. She painted a mural on the wall of the garage with her school art club. It showed her dad holding a wrench, surrounded by stars. Underneath it said, My daddy fixes more than cars. One night, a customer came in just before closing. A woman in her 40s wearing a tattered coat, holding her car keys with shaky fingers. I know you're closing, she said, but I can't get home, my brakes are gone. Ethan looked at the clock, then at her car. Pop the hood, he said. As he worked, she watched silently. Then she asked, Why do you do this? Ethan didn't look up. Because someone believed in me when no one else would. He tightened the bolt, closed the hood, and said, You're good to go. How much? She asked, reaching into her purse. Nothing, Ethan said. Just get home safe. She stood there in silence, then quietly whispered, Thank you, and drove away. Keanu stepped out of the back room, arms crossed. Still fixing cars for free? Ethan shrugged. Still feels right? Keanu smiled. Good. Then he looked out the window at the night sky and said, You know what's next, right? Ethan turned to him. What? You speak at the National Small Business Summit in 3 weeks, Ethan laughed. Keanu, I'm a mechanic. Keanu nodded. Yeah, but now, you're also a movement. And somewhere across the country, another single parent was reading about Ethan, printing out a business plan, and whispering to themselves, if he can do it, maybe I can too. The summit, the legacy, and the little hands the summit hall was massive. Bright lights, cameras, crowds. People from all 50 states had gathered at the National Small Business Summit. Senators, governors, CEOs, professors, activists. Rows and rows of faces looking forward, waiting for the final keynote speaker. Ethan Clark stood backstage, hands trembling. He wore a simple suit, not expensive, not flashy, just clean and honest, like him. Beside him stood Keanu Reeves, arms crossed, calm as ever. You ready? Keanu asked. No, Ethan said with a nervous laugh. But I'm going anyway. Keanu smiled. Then you're exactly ready. The stage manager gave the signal. Ethan stepped into the light. Applause rolled across the room like a wave. He stood at the podium, looked down at his notes, then looked up, and spoke from the heart. 3 years ago, he began. I stood in a bank lobby with nothing but a folder and a dream. I was a single dad working night shifts and weekends trying to build something for my daughter. The room fell silent. That day I was denied a loan. Not because I didn't believe, but because the system didn't believe in me. I was told I wasn't enough. Not wealthy enough. Not safe enough. Not stable enough. He paused. But there was one man standing behind me. And he changed everything. He nodded toward Keanu, who gave the smallest smile from his seat. He didn't just write a check, he listened. He asked questions. He saw me. And from that moment, I promised I'd do the same for others. He pointed to a screen behind him, where photos flashed, of shops in New York, Kansas, Oregon, Georgia. All of them run by single parents who had joined the Clark Initiative for Honest Work. We now have 43 shops across the country. And not one of them is owned by a corporation. They're owned by parents, caretakers, survivors, fighters, people who just needed someone to say, I see you. The crowd clapped. Some wiped their eyes. This isn't just about business. Ethan continued. It's about dignity, about building something that lasts, not just for profit, but for people, for children who grow up knowing that their parents didn't give up, that someone believed in them. He finished with a story. Last week, a little girl walked into our shop with her dad. He had lost his job and needed help. We fixed their car for free. Before she left, she handed me a drawing she made. He pulled out the paper. It was crumpled, hand-colored with crayons. It was me, fixing her car. And at the bottom, she had written 3 words. Thank you, hero. He paused, voice breaking slightly. I'm not a hero. I'm just a dad. But if we create a world where every parent gets a fair chance, maybe we don't need heroes. Maybe we just need each other. The room rose in a standing ovation. Not because of the words, but because of the truth in them. After the speech, Keanu found Ethan behind the stage, sitting alone with a cup of water and his tie loosened. You did good, Keanu said. I almost passed out, Ethan replied. But you didn't. They laughed. Ethan looked around at the crowd starting to leave, the handshakes, the press. You really think this will last? Ethan asked quietly. Keanu nodded. Not because of me, because of you. Because people believe in honesty when they see it. Ethan turned serious. Why did you help me, Keanu? Really? Keanu took a deep breath. Because someone once helped me, he said. Back when I was lost, before fame, before success. Someone gave me a chance when they didn't have to. I never forgot that. And when I saw you in that bank, I recognized the look in your eyes. Not weakness, just waiting. Ethan nodded slowly. Waiting for someone to believe. Months passed. The Clark Initiative grew even more. Partnerships formed with high schools, prisons, and shelters, teaching trades, offering internships, and creating jobs. Ethan became more than a mechanic. He became a voice. He gave talks, wrote a book, sat on panels with people who once dismissed him. Now they listened, but through it all, he never stopped working at the original garage. Not even once. Every Wednesday he fixed cars, because he never wanted to forget where it started. One summer afternoon, a boy named Jalen walked into the shop. He was 14, quiet, shy, holding a backpack and a nervous smile. "I'm supposed to do community service for school," he said. "My teacher said, this place might be good." Ethan looked him over. Saw the same spark he once had. "You like tools?" Ethan asked. "I don't know," Jalen said. "Never used any." Ethan handed him a wrench. "Then let's find out." And, that day, they fixed a flat tire together. That night, Ethan sat at home with Ella, now a teenager. They ate pizza, watched cartoons, and laughed like they used to. Ella turned to him and asked, "Dad, do you think the shop will still be here when I'm older?" Ethan looked at her, his daughter, the reason he never gave up. "Yeah," he said. "And if it's not, you'll build something better." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Maybe I'll open one just for moms." He smiled. "I'd be proud of that." One last story. A few months later, Ethan received a letter. No return address. Inside was a check for $25,000 and a note that read, "I was the bank manager who denied your loan. I've watched everything you've done since. You didn't need my money. You needed someone to believe in you. I'm sorry. This is for the next person who walks in your shop with a dream." Ethan stared at the check, then tucked it into a drawer labeled Next Chance Fund. Because that's what the garage had become. Not just a place to fix cars, a place where chances lived, where honest work had a name, where a single dad once stood alone until someone stood behind him. And together they built something unforgettable.